Sleep paralysis is a phenomenon in which an individual, either during falling asleep or awakening, temporarily experiences an inability to move, speak, or react. It is a transitional state between wakefulness and sleep, characterized by an inability to move muscles. It is often accompanied by terrifying hallucinations to which one is unable to react due to paralysis, and physical experiences such as strong current running through the upper body and physical experiences. These hallucinations often involve a person or supernatural creature suffocating or terrifying the individual, accompanied by a feeling of pressure on one's chest and difficulty breathing. Another common hallucination type involves intruders, human or supernatural, entering one's room or lurking outside one's window, accompanied by a feeling of dread.
The worst thing was seeing a dog sitting on one of my arms, growling at me, and a girl whose face was covered with her hair was sitting on the other arm. I only woke up when she lay backwards and I felt her hair on my face. Submitted by Zoe. I got sleep paralysis a couple of times when I was a kid, but it became really bad in my second year of university. I would wake up, unable to move, and feeling something sitting on my chest. It got worse when I started to see things, always in the corner of the room, a dark figure I knew was watching me. Sometimes it would whisper things, which of course freaked me out. One time, I was dragged down the bed by this dark figure, unable to stop it, but I managed to force myself to wake up. When we moved out of the house after second year, the sleep paralysis stopped, and I've only had 2 episodes in the 6 years since. Submitted by Charlotte. The first time it happened, I remember waking and an enormous pressure bearing down on me and a loud, almost deafening buzzing sound in my ears. I felt threatened, as though some malevolent, demonic presence was hovering above me, trying to possess me, trying to force itself into my body, and I was unable to fight it off. I can remember trying to speak, to tell it to go away, to leave me alone, and it wouldn't let me. Eventually, the sound in my ears faded away, and the pressure eased, and I was able to move again. At the time, I didn't really know what sleep paralysis was. It wasn't until I stumbled upon an article about it that I realized what I was suffering from. Although I know now that I'm not actually being attacked by some demonic force, it's still absolutely terrifying when you're stuck in the moment and unable to do anything except wait for it to end. Submitted by Sophie. I had a nightmare. I was hearing a 911 call of someone being attacked, and I woke up to a hallucination of the attacker in my room. Submitted by Caddy. I have terrible hallucinations, and as I try and fight my paralysis, I sometimes flick back and forth between reality and my dream, so I can see my room and have my eyes open, but the creature from my nightmare is also in my room. It's genuinely petrifying, and has made me feel I'm actually being possessed, which in turn makes me feel like I'm going crazy. It used to last only a few seconds, but recently it's getting longer and longer. That's terrifying when you're conscious of it. You feel trapped inside yourself for a significantly long period of time, maybe 10 minutes. It's horrible. I wouldn't wish it on anyone. I wish there was a real cure so I never had to go through that again. The best I can do is try to avoid technology before bed and make sure my bedtime is a set time every night to give me routine. Submitted by Beth. I get sleep paralysis 4 to 5 times a year. It happens mostly when I fall asleep during the day. I have vague, non-specific dreams, usually involving a threat or danger. It's accompanied by a feeling of extreme dread, which then escalates into outright terror. I tend to have auditory hallucinations. The voice will be clear, and I'll hear it as if someone is standing right next to me. I know I'm asleep, but the voice is real. Sometimes I also see a figure standing nearby. I try to scream, but I can't make a sound. I'll try to run, but can't move. Somewhere in my mind, I'm aware I'm asleep, but I cannot wake up or move. I'm pinned down. The only way to come around is to let the terror overwhelm me, and then I slowly come to. I don't wake up violently, thrashing, screaming, or sweating. I'm calm, but it takes me a couple of hours to feel normal again. It isn't the same as a nightmare. The feelings with sleep paralysis are profoundly intense, but based on a non-specific threat. There's no monster, no axe murderer, no terrible accident, just you, alone with your fear, and unable to escape it. Submitted by Amy. I felt pressure on my chest, and it crept closer up my body, becoming heavier when it reached my head. I could hear my name being shouted louder and louder until it became a scream. Literally the worst experience of my life. Submitted by Amy. I was living at home with my mom. I was unwell, so I was in bed all day. My mom was home with me. I must have fallen asleep, as I never heard her open my bedroom door or walk across the room, but I felt her sit on the bed beside me. I heard her pick up my cup of water as if checking if it needed refilling, and felt her brush the hair from my face. Then all of a sudden, I was being choked. I felt hands around my neck. I couldn't open my eyes, as if they were glued shut, and I tried to raise my arms to break free, but it was as if they'd been nailed to the mattress. I struggled to breathe and felt myself getting lightheaded. Then all of a sudden, it went, and I could open my eyes and move again. My mom was nowhere to be seen. She was upstairs at the neighbor's house. Submitted by Rebecca. I once had a woman in black experience where I woke with a heavy weight on my chest, and in the corner of my eye, I thought I could see someone at the end of my bed. The figure had a large hat and black veil hanging down over its face. It started to stamp its feet and scream at me, as if to get me to look at it. I couldn't move. I was laid on my back with my head to the side, and remember trying to move to pick up a glass to throw at the figure, but my arms wouldn't work. When I came around, I burst into tears. One of the most terrifying experiences I've had, and still to this day can't sleep on my back. That was 3 years ago. Submitted by Sam. There have been terrifying times where I've rolled over and looked at my boyfriend, only to see a black and red striped face looming over his shoulder. Submitted by Lottie. I'd woken up in my dorm room. It was a stormy night, around 4 a.m, and still quite dark, though there was a yellowish-orange light from a street lamp outside. The window at the foot of my bed had been left cracked open and was banging in the wind. I got up to shut it and stumbled back to bed, lying on my right side facing the wall with my eyes closed. It began with tactile hallucinations. I felt as if a pair of slightly clammy hands with thick fingers were gently stroking my face, in particular my lips, eyes, and ears, and prodding at my mouth. Eventually, this feeling gave way to prickling pins and needles all over my body, and I felt very cold and buzzing, as if I were electrified or covered in static shocks. At the time, a heavy ringing began in my ears, very loud and in an even tone. It was at this point I got the sensation there was someone else in the room, very close to me. I was able to open my eyes, and I felt this weight pressing down on the left side of my ribs and shoulder. The light from the street was blocked by shadow, and I realized the shadow had a solid form, a squat creature with cat-like features and claws, though humanoid and compact. It was about 3 or 4 feet tall, sitting on top of me. It had pointed ears and pale yellow eyes with no pupils. I couldn't distinguish its face, beyond the outline and its glowing eyes. I knew it was a demonic force of some sort, and I tried to scream. I felt the air leaving my throat, but only heard a faint whimper. I don't know how long this lasted, but eventually the apparition was gone and I was able to move. I got up and turned on my bedside light and sat up until dawn. Submitted by Emily. I've had 2 experiences of sleep paralysis. The first time, there was just different faces coming towards me. No bodies, just faces. Terrifying. The second time, I'd been having a vivid nightmare about being robbed. And when I went into sleep paralysis, I saw a man crouching beside my bed, wearing a red checkered shirt, who was brandishing a knife. I've never concentrated so hard on blinking. The experiences felt like they lasted forever, but must have only been a minute at most. Submitted by Victoria. I'd fallen asleep listening to a podcast. When I woke up, the voice had changed into this demonic, record-played backwards voice, hissing,
Don't trust.
slowly, over and over again. It was terrifying. Submitted by Steph. I've experienced sleep paralysis throughout my life. I usually hear voices, sometimes incomprehensible, but always creepy and threatening. It's always been a woman's voice. As a child, I was convinced a witch lived in my room as a result. I get the feeling someone is in my room, but I can't see them and I can't move. I once had the sensation of someone getting into bed beside me, pushing against me, which was terrifying. I often get a strange tingling feeling throughout my body and a ringing in my ears, which feels awful. I always put these episodes down to nightmares until a couple years ago I read about sleep paralysis and realized that's what was happening. Submitted by Natasha. I've woken up countless times in the night to see a man standing in my room. Either it's a bald guy or a guy wearing a fedora hat. It's the scariest thing imaginable. Submitted by Laura. I don't remember falling asleep. I looked up at the ceiling hatch straight above my head, and there was a man peering down at me, and he was trying to climb down to kill me. I thought I was awake. It was one of the scariest experiences I've ever had. Submitted by Holly. The worst experience I have ever had was when I was having a nightmare. I woke up, but I could still hear voices behind my head saying,
They are coming. They are coming for you.
over and over again, and I could see shadows moving from the corners of the room across the ceiling above me. I was trying to move to wake my ex and tried to scream, but I couldn't, and then I couldn't breathe. It was like someone had sat on my chest. It was absolutely terrifying. I had had other experiences, but that was the worst one. They kept saying,
They are coming. They are coming for you.
Submitted by Allie.